voice is coming through loud and clear. All right, all right. Alrighty. Are we live? And I believe we are. Check 1, 2. Checkity check. Alrighty. And there we have it. Boom! Shaka lucka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy, Christial, aka the Esoteric Noetic, aka, say it with me, the Chocolate Nubian Sobrada from Ghana, West Africa, dropping the truth bombs on the daily here in the beautiful Gold Coast. You like my scenery? You like the view? Thought I'd give you guys a change of view. Get sick of looking at inside my house all the time, right? Check out this beautiful scenery. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I love living next to the beach, the sea. Ooh, feels good. Good way to calm yourself, you know? It's important for us to take a step back sometimes and allow the elements, nature, to benefit us, infuse us with its healing properties. Anyway, without further ado, like the video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mom, drop us the comments, drop us the cryptocurrencies. You know what it is. Let's get it. Now, the title of this video may have caught a lot of you momos off guard. What? What's this? Inner Terrestrials? Esoteric Mystery School? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I've decided to perhaps make a series of this. I'm going to be doing a mystery school session every once in a while, doing these impromptu live broadcasts, talking about esoteric knowledge. That means knowledge that you momos may not know, at least some of you. And topics that I find very interesting that relate to a lot of hidden information that the government has not been telling you about. There's a lot of stuff going on in this world, I'm sure you probably gathered, that we're not being told about. And one of the beautiful things about this entire pandemic is that everyone's becoming a sheep. No. It is that people are starting to realize that there are certain things that go on in this world that they are not privy to. That the world deals interest for starters. But if the news is bad, imagine how bad history is. Imagine the amount of information that has been hidden from you in regards to reality, in regards to humanity, whether or not we are the only beings on this planet. Now, I want to delve into the topic of weird science and freaking magic, specifically extraterrestrials. Now, a lot of people still look at the topic of extraterrestrials as something built of air and imagination. Even within the mainstream scientific academia, we look at this subject matter, this is in the 21st century, as if, granted there's a possibility, granted we say, oh look, it's more than likely that there are extraterrestrials, but obviously they're not on this planet. We deal with this topic as if the reality that extraterrestrials have been visiting this planet for millennia is not true. We pretend that there isn't actually a war going on outside of this freedom war that we are seeing. There is a war happening on many levels in this universe, ladies and gentlemen. There is what we see, what we experience, what we're told on the mainstream news, but then there's the stuff that we don't see, the stuff that is going on deep underground. That's right, subterranean networks deep in the ground. There's stuff that is going on different planets, different dimensions. There's a lot of things that are going on within this planet that we are not being exposed to. And I, for one, the Chocolate Nubian, I'm going to endeavor to cast away the shadows from your vision, so you may gain insight into what is truly going on in this crazy world. All right, so let's talk about the inner terrestrials. So when we speak about extraterrestrials, most people think, oh yeah, little green men from Mars. Oh, look, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe in a few million years we might discover them in many light years away, but clearly they're not here, because we would know. The government would tell us. Government always tells us everything. And we often make reference to flying saucers, the Greys, these Grey-like beings that have been spotted many times, the reptilians. Now, one of the things that we don't seem to speak about are the fact that many of these beings may not actually be from up there, down there. In fact, you'll find that a lot of the ancient records, the many ancient mythology, which is a word we often use for, or at least the West tends to use for any history it comes across that doesn't seem to make sense, that doesn't correspond with their worldview. But there's a lot of records that show that man has actually been interacting with beings from the earth. And of course we refer to these beings as demons, devils, and all forms of abominations. But in fact, if you have a look at the ancient records, we're dealing with at least some of these beings, I believe, that have been here before we were. Sounds crazy. And this is not just something I'm basing off of ancient records, ancient writings from the Eddas or the Vedas, or classic Greek history, dealing with accounts of minotaurs and these weird-like beings that seem to be cross-hybrids, but seem to be real nonetheless in the way they're spoken about. I'm speaking about beings here that have a history of being on this planet for a long period of time, that are referred to in the ufology scene as being the Dracos, essentially representing dragons. I mean, these scaly-like, reptilian-like beings have not only been referred to in the ancient records, but in recent times, figures such as Phil Snyder, who was an engineer, essentially, that was working in underground facilities such as S4, and to the earth, deep into the earth, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking many, many kilometers into the earth in these underground bases, S4, and eventually came across what he referred to as a reptilian-like being. The Dracos is what he referred to them as. And there are many accounts of this. I mean, a lot of this is corroborated with not only the accounts of Phil Snyder, the evidence that Bob Lazar, who's someone that is known to have reverse-engineered craft that the government, the United States government, was hiding from its people, confirming the beings that were actually behind these crafts. But there is a lot of eyewitness reports of people having these encounters with these dragon-like beings known as the reptilians. And the history actually shows you that they have a history of being on this planet well before human beings. That they look at human beings as, well, as food. A lot of people make the argument that, look, I think extraterrestrials are good beings because, look, if they were going to take over the world, they would have taken over the world. Now, this is an idea that is typically shared by a lot of the momos, a lot of the hipsters out there that look at everything as love and light. And look, I think it's important to have that perspective, but I also want to deal in the reality. The reality of the situation is that there are many, many reports of these beings doing horrible things to people. We're not just talking about kidnapping and mutilating animals and so forth. I mean, the last few decades are full of reports of beings, like the Greys specifically, abducting humans and performing experiments on them. That's definitely not something that's beneficent. But more importantly, these beings have a reputation of being incredibly aggressive. And the idea that they only want to do good, and if they wanted to take over the world, they would have done so, fails short when you realize that these beings, for starters, are not suited to the current climate, current environment. In the same way that if we went to a different planet, we probably wouldn't be able to breathe the atmosphere. We may not have the physical makeup in order to endure the elements. I mean, human beings, we're not the strongest, unless you're a chocolate newbie, unless you're like me. Boom! You can deal with the elements. But, we break pretty easily. And some of these extraterrestrials, they're not suited to the surface environment. That's why they live underground. Now, I know that this information sounds very dubious to most people, but I'm basing this off of the tremendous amount of not only eyewitness reports, but historical information. Of course, we call this mythology, but you delve into this topic long enough and you realize that there are many accounts of this. You've heard stories of reptilians that are cool too. Okay, well, I'm yet to hear stories that I think of reptilians as being cool, but look, one of the things we tend to do is we do tend to generalize when we're looking at extraterrestrials, right? Like in the same way that we say people are good, people are bad, we have to realize that we're dealing with races here. Specifically though, when we're dealing with the reptilians, the Draco, essentially these are beings that are from the the Orion system, and they have a reputation of, and this is according to the eyewitness reports, being extremely aggressive, being incredibly strong, telepathic, and they smell horrible. More importantly, every report that I've heard has been of an ominous nature. Now, granted, there are good aliens, no doubt. Bearing in mind there are many different races, the reptilians specifically have a reputation of being the more aggressive ones. The Greys, which are known to be their workers, are given the task of doing the labor, like going out, doing reconnaissance, kidnapping people, and so forth. But the reptilians are supposed to be the masters, the enslavers, the controllers. And typically, based off of at least the information that I've read and the reports that I've come across, they are very much the manifestation of the ancient accounts of hellish beings, demons. In fact, all that ancient lore that you're reading, mythology, speaking about these demons and so forth, a lot of times was in reference to the beings living under the ground, the Dracos. And I think it's also important to be mindful of the fact that, once again, we shouldn't generalize though. But in the same way that we can say that humanity in large, granted we are beings full of much potentiality, and some of us do good and some of us do bad, we typically, at present, have a reputation for, let's say, for just taking, conquering, and bringing about more and more control, right? You can say that generally speaking about the human race. And when you're speaking about reptilians collectively, you'd say that these are beings that have a reputation of enslaving, having very antagonistic qualities about them. But anyway, I digress. So I'm speaking about the inner terrestrials here, and I'm basically just explaining that there are more to beings outside of this planet, outside of our ionosphere, stratosphere. There are beings that inhabit the Earth. I mean, there are accounts in ancient records of Hollow Earth, Agartha. Now, when I'm speaking about inner terrestrials, I'm not really making reference to that. But that's also perhaps an aspect of it, the fact that there are beings that have history within the core of the Earth. And I'm familiar with the idea that, obviously, there is no evidence to support Hollow Earth, but all you need to do is research people like Admiral Byrd, that was a highly decorated pilot that reported to fly over an entrance to this Hollow Earth many, many years ago, but wasn't able to speak about it openly. Because you know what happens. Government tells you to keep quiet, or else. Or else the men in black appear, and you end up being suicided. Oh, but what else can I tell you about the Hollow Earth, ladies and gentlemen? And more specifically, the inner terrestrials. The history of planet Earth is something that is deep and vast. We speak about the history, our history relating to a few thousand years, right? We go back the time of Pythagoras in the West, or we can go back many thousand years ago. Perhaps if you're looking at the Indian records speaking about the different ages, but the truth is this planet has been around for many, many hundreds of thousands of years. That there are records that show that in the same way that we see the rise and fall of empires over the last few thousand years, like the Roman Empire, there has been the rise and fall of the human civilization many times. But we've gone through cataclysms, and there's a variety of evidence to support this, from the water erosions on the Pyramid of Giza, with people specializing in the field saying that the evidence actually shows that the pyramid was actually at a point. The area was green, wasn't full of desert. That means that it's likely there would have been a pole shift. That means we're dealing with a time many, many, many thousands of years ago when we're talking about the Pyramid of Giza. And if we follow the ancient writings of Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, I mean, this guy essentially came to Egypt and reseeded the planet after the massive cataclysms, the Great Deluge, the Flood, which many of the accounts of the ancient records make reference to. But even before that, the Earth has not seen one cataclysm, it's seen many. In fact, as I alluded to in one of the videos I made, the planet Earth was not known as Earth to begin with. It was known as Tiamat, but essentially through massive cataclysms came in contact with a foreign celestial body, Planet X, Nibiru, and essentially formed a new planet, which of course we refer to as Earth. And the moon essentially fell into its orbiting cycle. But the history of the planet is long and diverse, and it has not only been inhabited by human beings, but it has been inhabited by these extraterrestrials, known as the interterrestrials, that we often refer to in our lore as demons and devils and so forth. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let us know if you want to hear more about this topic. I thought I would come on here and extemporaneously rant about a topic which I find intriguing. There's a lot of stuff that is going on in this world, ladies and gentlemen, that we aren't aware of, but even more stuff that is going on that we couldn't imagine in our wildest dreams, unless, of course, you delve into this subject matter. So that's my first session, ladies and gentlemen, of the Esoteric Mystery Schools. Stay posted for my next topic. Also, I just want to let you all know that my new book has officially been written. I'm still going through it again, just fine-tuning it, but I'm very excited. I finished it this morning. It feels good. This is my first ebook. I am looking forward to getting this out to everyone. I'm hoping to perhaps release this. We'll see. I'm not putting it. Definitely within the next couple of months. Might be even the next couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. I'll have to see what muses tell me. But essentially, talk about what it's like striving to be a wisdomatic truth bomber, to be a warrior in this world, a warrior to the most innocent beings that we share this planet with, our fellow earthlings, these animals. And whereas a lot of people have the mentality that being a warrior is something that represents being aggressive, warring on people, being quick to violence, being quick to anger, it's quite the opposite. You find that the most powerful warriors are warriors that master themselves. They war with themselves to the point where they master themselves. The battle is not without, it is within. And rather than focusing on bringing about more violence, the greatest warrior brings about peace, uses physical force as a last resort. The greatest warrior is the defender of the innocent, is not quick to aggression, but rather is slow to it. The greatest warrior tries to uplift the vibration of the planet by being a defender of the innocent, casting a greater... So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being an insight into my new book. Probably have an idea what I'm going to be writing about, but I'm going to announce the title in the next week or so to come. And remind you guys that there are 3 things that cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the wisdomatic truth bombs of the chocolate Nubian soul brother. Surya Namaskar, Namaste, peace be upon your butt cheeks, peace in the Middle East. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to share the video, tell your mom, tell your friends. Until next time, yours truly, Chris Shule, the chocolate Nubian soul brother. Ow!